What is moral injury?
So moral injury is basically a person taking action or inaction that contradicts their deepest moral beliefs. So I don't know. I was thinking about before we logged into the session of how would I like create an example of that, and I guess my like scenario I built in my head is like imagine a doctor driving down the road and he witnessed a car accident and he's late for something. So he continues to drive down the road and doesn't stop to help them. Later, he sees on the news that, a baby passed away or something. And now he had inaction. He didn't do anything to help the situation, but he feels guilty because he knows his moral conviction is to help others when they need it. And so he drove past. Now, you could flip that and say for action, maybe he does stop to help, but he makes a mistake or something occurs and an individual gets hurt worse or passes away or something like that, he may still feel guilt or shame for not doing more or doing better to help rectify the situation. So I think that is something that I struggled with for a long time because everybody throws around the term PTSD. Everybody talks about it, and there's so many people that deal with it. And but for me, and I guess PTSD can manifest in several different manners, but a lot of times you see it as somebody posts a sign in the driveway for fireworks on 4th of July or something that, it might trigger something for them. For me, moral injury, or my case anyways, would never be noise related or anything of those, but I would think about certain missions that we were a part of that that don't sit well to me. Prime example is like dealing with direct action missions is very easy, like because we have Americans outside the wire going to do a mission, and my job is to protect them with any way that we can. I call in for support. They get their support that they need. We try to find, a place to land the helicopters to get them out of there. We coordinate CASEVACs. We do all kinds of things to kind of help Americans. So that part is very easy. So when we start getting into some of the other stuff, that we deal with and see loss of life downrange, that becomes very challenging to deal with. And we live pretty close to that world, and it becomes very hard to deal with something. Now, I'm not saying that like we removed a lot of enemies from the battlefield, and I think they were 100% just in doing so. And we work our butts off to only remove the people that are needed to remove. But then you still see the human side of it play out, right? Like I remember watching this MQ-9 strike happen one time, and we knew this guy was bad, better than that. It's so hard to even discuss because we know the evil that we see down there it's not something that can be on CNN or Fox. It can't be on the news. There's such a disconnect from reality of that world and our world that our citizens can't process properly. Like, and it's no offense to them, and for good reason. I don't want that. We want that evil gone. We want that conflict gone. So we don't want our families and our friends to be affected by it. But MQ-9 removes an enemy from the battlefield, and so we do battle damage assessment, stay overhead to watch, make sure look for first responders and something like that. And the first responder was the person's mom, and you see their mom come out and cradle their recently deceased loved one, and rocking back and forth. You can see the worst pain somebody can feel, and on full display. And it's very challenging to land and go to sleep afterwards and act like nothing happened. And then this is where the moral struggle comes into play because, weeks prior, the propaganda being published by ISIS was literally a toddler using a weapon to execute somebody and have no reaction to it. I'm talking about like a 3-year-old with no reaction to pulling the trigger. Maybe they're too young to understand it. Okay, well, what about the 10-year-old that I just watched take a dull blade to somebody? So something has to be done, but we're blurring some moral lines that makes it very challenging to deal with. It's a lot different than they raise a gun, so you raise your gun type of situation. You know what I mean? You're seeing the immediate behind the scenes of how the families are affected and whatnot in the same process.
The question that I had was so the Disney example, for a perfect example, how do you navigate dealing with this kind of stuff? And then a few days later, having to switch in your head of like, I get to hang out with my kids now. Like, obviously, the chaplain and the POTUF appear to be like a big part of that. I don't know if I would call it a transition, but like that mental shift in your mind. But kind of like what's going through your mind. Have you ever even even experienced that?
Well, let me see if I can put it together properly. Because so this is a lot deeper than I was expecting for us to go. So bear with me on trying to find the words for it as I started through it. But do you remember American Sniper,
Yeah,
Chris
yeah,
Kyle
yeah.
movie?
It was a really good movie.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, really good movie. And what I love is whoever they had supporting the filming on that for the military side of it, so flippin' spot on, man. I'm telling you, there's certain things about it that a normal person watching it that doesn't have a military background may not fully understand. So everybody watches war movies for the exciting war movies and the moral courage and yada yada yada. But the scene that he's sitting in his living room staring at a black TV screen. Do you remember what I'm referring
Yeah.
to? But like he's watching war, but it's a black screen on it. Like was such a spot on way to portray it. The world is moving around him, but he's not there. And so I remember coming back from the Middle East after one of my trips. Actually, holy crap, you're part of this story. This was a mission that we did together. We were eyes free while you were doing stuff that was going to launch something. So eyes free, I just put my sensor out on a park. And there was kids playing. It looked like a birthday party with one of those big like shoe looking slides, right? And I was looking at it. You were heads down in the back working your butt off. So you probably weren't paying attention, but I was watching it. I was pushing my kids on the swing and they're laughing and they're giggling, but my brain could not hear any of it. Like I just wasn't there. All I could think about was downrange and having that pivotal moment of watching kids celebrating a birthday. Meanwhile, it's a giant war zone. I didn't quite understand what was happening. But then when I watched American Sniper and I saw, Chris Kyle looking at the TV screen and it's black, but everybody around him is doing their thing. I was like, oh, that's it. I'll see certain vehicles on the road, or I'll be walking the dog and I'll see something happen and it'll immediately bring back a memory of me seeing something very similar downrange. So like it'll just everything that pauses. And for the first couple of years that was going on, I didn't really know how to like deal with it, if you will. I was just like it would actually change my entire mood. Like my entire mood would like kind of flop. I would just be kind of there but not there, if you will. Just kind of quiet and reserved. And that's not my personality. I'm not a quiet and reserved individual. Everybody knows that. I'm kind of loud and obnoxious and I apologize. Can't change who I am. But that's how I would react to it. And then but nowadays when it happens, I tend to just go, huh, that's interesting. Kind of roll back in my daily routine. So I don't know if that's just like a time thing or whatnot. There's no like strategy or coping mechanism that I can think of. It's just like one of those things that's just kind of been part of me now. Well, it's just kind of like what happens. But I definitely like that was actually a fight. I think that was like my first time actually flying with you because I think you started that trip flying more of the
Yeah,
GoCo
yeah, yeah.
stuff and then jumped over with us again. And I think that was one of our first times flying together. And it was like yeah, it stayed with me throughout all these years.